Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the John Gaunt Show. Today, we're talking about whether Starmer could learn anything from Trump and Farage's playbook. I hate that term, but stop giggling at the back. Of course he could learn something. The first thing he needs to learn is he's got to be proud of his country. He's got to put Britain first. That's what Donald Trump did. He wanted to make America great again. And people believe that. Now, to a lesser extent, that's really where Nigel Farage is coming from. But Starmer is like a disciple of the World Economic Forum. He seems to want to satisfy the rest of the world rather than us. So he takes money off farmers with the inheritance tax, but he's meanwhile giving it to far-flung places. Surely what he needs to do is what Trump's just done. He has cut foreign aid. Charity, to use a cliche, has to begin at home. But this is what I'm asking you. What other things does he need to do? Is there any way that Starmer can save his premiership? Even within the Labour hierarchy now, they're talking about who comes next. And I tell you the fundamental problem with Starmer, I don't think he ever expected to become Prime Minister. It all came too soon. He's got some ideas, half thought out, half baked, student union style politics. He suddenly got into power and he's looked around and said, what's the script? And the point is, if you're the leader, you are the script. You have to create your history. You can't possibly rely on policy twonks, little boys and girls straight out of university and straight into a job in number 10. No, it won't work. So what I'm asking you, and you can join in and just put some comments on the side. And if you're listening later, I'm always interested in hearing your views. Feel free to get involved in the inevitable debates that happen on Facebook and X afterwards. What does Starmer need to do? As I say, I think it's first and foremost, he has to embrace the flag. He has to be British. And I don't know whether he can do that. He always looks so awkward standing in front of the Union flag. People openly say he's not British. He's not proud to be British. Does that matter? Let's talk about that to start with. And then, of course, you've got to address the key things that people are concerned about. Some things which you feel like the Islington set that Starmer belongs to, the cappuccino tofu burger vegan mob that he's a part of, look down their snooty noses at. And I'll say it. The thing that concerns people so much at the moment is immigration. People feel there's too much of it. That doesn't mean they're racist. They want well-controlled, managed immigration. Yes, there are some racists who don't want any immigration. They're morons. Of course we need immigrants, the best and the brightest. We even need people to do menial jobs. But you can't run an economy on the doors are open, in you come, or the doors are locked, still come in. That's the problem. He needs to be tough on immigration. He needs to have a policy. And like today, have you seen Pravda, the BBC? The propaganda arm of Starmer, they've arrested 4,000 people, evidently, since they've been in power, and they're deporting them. Well, that's a great headline. And they're going to show us videos later of people, they hope, being put on planes, because you know the problem before, people get put on the plane, then they have a tantrum and they get taken off the plane. So no one ever gets deported. That's certainly what happened with the Tories, but he has been deporting people. But when you go under the headline, these aren't the people arriving in the dinghies at Dover from Calais. These are students. These are overstayers. These are people who have got in, maybe from our former Commonwealth, you know, like Jamaica, and have got themselves involved in crime, have been in prison, often for very dangerous things like rape or murder, and are now being deported. There's a bit of smoke and mirrors going on here. What we really want, if you want to learn from the Donald Trump playbook, is he's just getting them and saying, no, over you go. You're illegal. You've come over our southern border. We're sending you straight back. and we don't give a SH1T what happens to you when you get there. It's a tough policy, even down to the idea of let's build the wall, which, of course, he's continuing with. That's the approach that would make Starmer more popular. But at the moment, he's got Yvette Cooper in charge of it, the woman who messed up completely on Southport. She couldn't crush a grape. She couldn't tear a tissue. How's she going to get on top of immigration? Answer, she's not. And of course, fundamentally, he's a human rights lawyer. So he doesn't really want people deported. He is concerned if they're homosexual or bisexual and Jamaicans don't like homosexuals, therefore they might get in trouble. Well, if they've been to our country, committed crime, I don't care what happens when they go back. I don't care whether it's a homophobic country or not. The bottom line is, don't break the law. Don't come to our country. Don't do it. Am I in a minority, or do you agree with me? So immigration is number one. And it's that, again, that is so inherently tied up with making America great again. But you see, the uber liberals, of which Starmer is one, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like that. He thinks that's racist. It isn't racist to put your own country and the people living here first. It is racist to say people who are black are not British. Of course it is. It doesn't matter about the color of the skin or the religion, as long as they're getting involved and being part of society. What matters is looking after the people who are paying their taxes. Do you agree? So that's one thing he's got to learn. He's getting really tough on that. Denise Deacon, I see Starmer took a HIV test, but the one he needs is a lie detector test. That's brilliant, Denise. Thank you very much. I'll nick that and use it on social media later. Anybody else want to comment? So I'm saying you've got to wrap yourself in the flag. You've got to be proud to be British or American, things that, of course, that Farage does as well as President Trump. And you've got to believe in the people of the country. I don't get the impression that Starmer believes in us or our country or signs up to what we all believe in, our values, our traditions, our culture. I think there's a lot of people in this Labour government who actually kind of despise the white working class. Now, people, don't get on your high horses. When I talk about the white working class, they've been ignored for too long. That was part of the playbook of Trump in the first election. If you go to the Rust Belt, and I traveled across the states, you can see where his voters came from. People who had been left behind in the economic success they'd had before that. People who'd worked in heavy industry where there were no longer any jobs because the employers had taken the manufacturing to Japan, or worse still, to places like Mexico. Well, Trump has decided no longer. That's what the trade tariffs are all about, the customs tariffs. He's saying if you want to make products that you want to sell, for example, the cliche is air conditioning units, and you want to sell them in the States, and you're a States company, you're going to make them here. Otherwise, we're going to whack huge taxes on you. And he's just done it overnight, hasn't he, with steel. Now, I'm not saying everything he's doing is right, but what I am saying is the correct procedure is to put America and Americans first. That is not happening in this country. And that's one thing Starmer could definitely learn. I mean, this is what Farage is playing on, isn't it? The farmers are a great example. All those tractors in London today, they're moaning about the inheritance tax, which I've got a lot of sympathy for them, to be honest with you. But the bottom line is, even if you didn't, it would stick in your craw, wouldn't it, to know that he's given foreign aid to other countries for farming when he's actually screwing our own farmers. It's a bit like the winter fuel allowance. Fancy cutting that to 10 million pensioners who have all paid in, but is then going to give away, 17 billion of foreign aid. We can't afford it. We're in a recession. I know technically we're not, but we are. You've got to put British people first. That is not racist. I don't even think it's nationalist. I think it's plain common sense. So that's another lesson he could learn. John, good afternoon. I see Farage is now favourite to be the next Prime Minister. Yes. Under a Conservative Party. Do you think this could happen? No. Why would Nigel Farage want to join in with the Conservatives? They're over. They're finished. It's dead. It's a deceased political party. It is the dead parrot of Monty Python sketch fame of politics. Farage isn't going to do that. Farage is going to try his hardest to get power for himself. I think what will actually happen is it'll be a hung parliament, but he'll hold the balance of power. I can't see him turning it completely and getting a majority, but who knows? If it did take 4 years, if Starmer does cling on that long, but you see, I don't think he will. So I don't think the question comes up, Steve. I think it's a good point you're making, but I wouldn't vote. If tomorrow they got Boris Johnson back and Nigel Farage, I would not vote Tory. I wouldn't. Not after the last 14 years. They're the ones who got us in this mess. And they don't like our country either, or our people. They're too busy pouncing around on the world stage. I mean, that's Sir Keir Starmer, isn't it? He'd much rather be on a jet. He even said it in an interview. What do you prefer, Davos or Westminster? He said Davos because you can get things done. He doesn't want to be the Prime Minister of this country. He doesn't love our country enough. Now, for whatever reason you might not like Trump, he's an American, good and bad. Nigel Farage is the same, British through and through. And that's why people want them in power. Are you with me? So it's immigration. But then on top of immigration, it's law and order. People are quite simply fed up of the savagery, the extreme savagery of, say, Southport, and the fact that we've had all that nonsense again. Oh, you'll never learn. We'll never do it again. We'll learn where lessons will be learnt and all the rest of it. Who's in charge? Yvette Cooper. Oh, yeah, that'll happen then. They knew that that guy was a madman. He should have been taken off the streets. And the people who didn't take him off the streets should be in a court of law and be getting prosecuted. The same with the rape gangs. Every single person who ignored what was happening in those northern towns needs to be put in the dock. Do you agree with me? Now, if Starmer started saying things like that, as indeed Trump has been saying, he would be a shoo-in for 2 terms. How on earth he possibly could think he could be the leader of our great country, and it is a great country, despite what politicians of all parties have done over recent years. It is still a great country. But he had no policy. He had no plan whatsoever. And he got a majority because he basically was the least worst thing. Compared to Rishi or Liz Truss and the Tories, he was the best. But it's hardly a recommendation, is it? And that's the problem. He's got into number 10 and he doesn't know what to do. He's surrounded with people like Lammy, who have called Trump a fascist, basically a member of the KKK, and then he compounds the mistakes. Why on earth does he think it's a good idea to make Mandelson the ambassador to the United States of America? He's not Trump's kind of bloke, is he? In any shape or form. There's too many links to Epstein and Epstein Island. That's before we talk about the fact that he got kicked out of government twice for, how would I put it, in inverted commas, kind of corruption scandals. The passport scandal, of course, and the scandal where he gave the money for the mortgage, took the money for the mortgage of Jeffrey Robinson, ex-MP for Coventry. It was a mortgage fiddle. If Tommy Robinson can be slagged off constantly for fiddling his mortgage forms, why can't Mandelson? And clearly, Mandelson then compounded that with the things he said about Trump, that he's a racist and the rest of it. He's now done that groveling apology. But Starmer, see, he just hasn't got the common touch. There are plenty of other good people he could put into that position. But he's so pig-headed. A typical lawyer. It's all about process. He's looked at the process. Mandelson's the best person for the job. Mandelson's going to get it. I've made my mind up. That's it. But that's not the way you can be in politics. You've got to be pragmatic. So that's going to wind up Trump. But you see, that's also because he hasn't got the common touch. And that's the other thing. You can't learn this, by the way. He has not got the ability to talk to the ordinary man and woman in the street. Donald Trump's a billionaire, but he can talk to anybody. Nigel Farage is the same. I've been in his company many times. He's comfortable in his own skin, and he will talk to anyone. And they will come away saying, oh, he's quite a nice guy. Oh, he surprised me. The proof for Farage was, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. They put him in there, ITV. I mean, they're wonderful people, aren't they? Eh? The way they're just stitching up Gino DiCampio. But they put Farage in the jungle because they wanted to stitch him up. But he was too clever for them. Not clever. That's the wrong term, John. He was just natural. He's just normal. You can just talk to him. He likes a pint. I know some of that's for show. He likes a fag, right? He's just an ordinary bloke. And then they try to slag him off saying, oh, we went to a private school. Starmer didn't. Da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, well, so what? Donald Trump's a billionaire, but he can talk to people. There are other billionaires who can't. For example, Elon Musk. What a genius he is, but he's got the personality of my table. But if you got the two things together, that's gold dust. That's what Farage has got, and that's what Trump's got. And Starmer's got none of it. He just cannot communicate. Just found out as well, you know, the acting lessons with the lady from the Confession films. Well, she wasn't it, but she was in one of them, evidently. Bit of a racy part by all accounts. He had those for 5 years. He's been having acting lessons for 5 years. And he still speaks like a Dalek, right? Before Duracell batteries were made. He's useless. He's useless. How has he become the leader of that party and now the leader of our country? Well, the answer is, have you seen the other dimwits in Labour? Look at Angela Rayner. Look at her. Did you see her on the Sunday TV lying when they said to her, did you say that Keir Starmer couldn't run a bath, let alone a country? She lied. She obviously said it. The same with Prince Andrew. She called him a nonce. Well, I probably agree with her on that on one level, but she wouldn't admit it on that Laura Kuenssberg show. Do you want her to be the Prime Minister? Then you got Lammy. The Foreign Secretary, is now looking for slavery or reparations. He's our Foreign Secretary. He's putting the rights of other people again before the rights, the needs, the desperate needs of the British people. It's like when they say, oh, we're going to build 1.5 million houses. Yeah, but most of them are going to go to new arrivals. Or when they put migrants in hotels. I saw that other woman, what's her name? Nigel. She was, getting mixed up. There's two sisters. She was on the telly this morning talking about hotels, bragging that the fact that Tories were using 400 and odd hotels to put up these asylum seekers, stroke illegal immigrants, stroke economic migrants, whatever you want to call them. She said, no, we've got less. It's only 240 something. Oh, well, that's something to brag about, isn't it? No, not one single migrant should be in a bloody hotel. Not when there's British troops and ex-servicemen lying on the streets of London, Manchester, Birmingham, Coventry, shouting, mad, gone mad on drugs. No. We should be looking after our own. We need to control our borders. Why aren't we doing it? America's going to do it. That's the way to get elected, Starmer. And then to brag when he first got in. Oh, yeah, he's going to get 2 terms. No, he's not. He's got no chance whatsoever. The people have seen through him. So let's get on to that popular word now. By the way, I'll come to you. I'll just take a few of them now. Starmer's time is up as the Prime Minister. But how much longer before the Labour backbenchers revolt against him? Well, that will definitely happen. Matt says Starmer has turned out to be the worst of all, in my opinion. He has. He's the least popular prime minister in living history. But let me just tell you something about that. He hates the word popular, because that's another thing they slag off Donald Trump for, and Nigel Farage. Oh, they're populists. What? Because they talk about things that are popular, that ordinary people are concerned about, like immigration. Can I feed my kids? Will my kids get mugged on the way home? Is my daughter going to get raped by a bunch of animals? Is my little daughter going to be okay, or my granddaughter when she goes to a dance class, if it's Taylor Swift? Those things. Is that populist to say, I'm not going to have that? We're not having that in our country. Anyone who does that, we're going to execute them, or we're definitely going to get them deported if they're not a British national. Is that something to be upset about? I don't think so. Matt says, spot on, John. Starmer is a robot. No, he's not that clever. Andy George, hi, John. I think when Starmer, Rayner and Cooper wake up in the morning, not together, I used to do that. I'll tell you what, that'd be a good story, wouldn't it? I'm sure their first thoughts are, what can we do today to piss off the peasants? Andy George, actually, Andy, I know you're taking a mick, but that's a very funny contribution. It does feel like that. What can we do to really annoy the plebs? I mean, today, they're now recommending their wages go up above inflation. It's only a it's a very small percentage. But they don't deserve a pay rise, MPs, do they? We need less MPs. I'd pay them more, but I'd have less of them. And what about the two filthy MPs, Labour MPs, over the weekend? And they reckon it could be up to 12 of them. But two of them, who basically an old lady writes to one of them and says, no, I didn't vote for you, but now you're elected. Can you sort out when I'm going to get my dustbins emptied? And he basically replied, I'm laughing, but I shouldn't be, in this WhatsApp group, I don't really give a shit, love. You didn't vote for me, and hopefully you'll be dead by the time the dustbin men come. How can we have people in the Houses of Commons even joking about us, the plebs? So in a way, Andy George, that kind of goes into what you're saying. They wake up in the morning. How can we wind up the plebs? What can we do to really make them angry? I know what we'll do. We'll put the dustbin collections to 4 weekly. We'll take the mickey out of them in a WhatsApp group. They're just the plebs. They're just the plebs. But when a war comes round, it's the plebs' kids who go and shed their blood in the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan, isn't it? It's not Tony Blair's kids. You see, and that brings me round to the next thing I want to talk about. The way they go on about diversity, and they go on about that Britain was built by immigrants. Well, maybe. Certainly the Irish contributed to that, and the West Indians when they came and looked after our National Health Service, and indeed the first people from the Asian subcontinent, including Pakistan, who came as doctors in the 60s. They did. But Britain wasn't just built by immigrants. It was built by people who were already in this country and by the new people who came in who decided they wanted to be British. They wanted to be British more than anything. That's what built Britain. Our pride, our hard work, our passion. And if you got a part of that in you, Starmer, which Nigel has got, again, learning from their playbook, and Donald Trump definitely has, you would get more votes. You would be popular. You'd even be a populist. Don't forget, Donald Trump won every aspect of that election. Got the most votes, won the Congress, won the Senate, the judges, everything. Why? Because he's talking what people are thinking. And once he got into power, what did he do? He did exactly what it said on the tin. He said he was going to control the border, and he has done. He said he was going to sort out Mexico and other countries and Canada. He's done it. The Gulf of Mexico, I'm going to rename it, which is a bit of a potty one in my idea, in my opinion, but that's what he wanted to do. He's done it. It's now the Gulf of America, right? He says he's going to do something, and he's done it. He's sending hardened criminals to El Salvador. Have you seen the prison they're going to? He ain't messing about. Why haven't we got leaders like that in this country? Well, I'll tell you why. In the end, it comes down to common purpose. They've all done the common purpose course. So have all the uber liberals who infest not only the BBC, but Sly News, the councils, every public body, they think their view of the world, where everyone's lovely, no one's a bastard who's going to kill you at a Taylor Swift concert, no one's mental and is going to kill you. No, everything's wonderful. And when that does happen, we'll have a public inquiry, some bewigged buffoon will tell us something, and then we'll all carry on, regardless. Well, it isn't like that in the real world, and we know that. And again, Farage knows that. Trump knows that, because he listens to the people. And if that's populism, let's please have more of it in this country. These are the lessons he could learn. Starmer hasn't got a brain to begin with, says Rosseth 22. Well, maybe, but I must say, he is a bright bloke, highly educated bloke. But then again, look at the people I met at university. Very clever, got all the qualifications, but no common sense. We all say that, don't we, about those sorts of people? Yeah. Denise Deacon, I'm sick of being the one that's blamed for everything that's wrong in the country, just for being a white working class person. Whether it's Black Lives Matter or Islamophobia, I'm apparently white privileged, but I don't see any privilege in my one-bedroom council flat on a council estate with kids riding around on bikes with their faces covered. I've obeyed the law all my life, but I'm made to feel like a criminal. That's a very good email, Denise. Thank you very much indeed for that. You're right. What is their reaction to terror attacks, 97% of which have been committed by Islamists? Their reaction to that, Starmer and that stupid Angela Rayner, is let's define what Islamophobia is. Oh, yeah, that's number one priority. No, I think number one priority, Mr. Starmer, Sir Starmer, and Angela Rayner, is find out why the Southport killer did what he did. Find out how he managed to do what he did. I'd say that's a priority. I would say the 13,000 foreign criminals that infest our jails, that's our priority. Not, let's worry about Islamophobia. I'm not saying that people should be anti-Muslim. Of course I'm not. I don't even reckon ordinary Muslims think it. Well, there's been loads of them on the telly saying it's not a priority. But you see, this is the problem. Starmer, Blair, Mandelson. Mandelson even admitted it, didn't he? We wanted to rub their noses in diversity. They almost sent out search parties to bring more immigrants into the country. And there's just been too many of them. And then when the British people voted against that with Brexit, what have they tried to do? They've tried to wreck Brexit. So then you got Jeremy Clarkson, multi-millionaire. No, Jeremy Clarkson, nice bloke. But when he says it hasn't worked, he's right. It hasn't worked in terms of if you're a rock band or a farmer or a TV crew. There's all these stupid, petty rules. But that isn't the fault of Brexit or Nigel Farage. That's the fault of the people who tried to implement it afterwards. The fact that Boris, and another reason why Farage won't team up with him, he betrayed Nigel. Don't you know your history? Nigel stood his people down. It was at the Brexit party at that point, whatever they were called that week. And then Boris stitched him up. It's ridiculous, the deal we've got. It isn't really Brexit. I agree. But to suddenly make out all the people who voted for Brexit are thick, which is what the papers say, and people like Clarkson say, is wrong. We haven't been given the Brexit that we wanted. What we voted for was control of our borders, controls of our laws. But we've still got the European Court of Human Rights. We didn't vote for that. But our politicians, common purpose again, are also spineless. They didn't deliver. And that's across the political spectrum. Are you following what I'm saying? So we need politicians. We need Donald Trump or Nigel Farage to say it's Britain first. And it will always be Britain first, America first. Do you see where this is where I'm coming from in this argument? We have to learn from Trump's playbook. But the politicians don't want to, because that will upset their cozy little view of the world. Talking of the world, foreign aid. We cannot afford foreign aid at the moment. You have to have some foreign aid because it gets you deals. I understand how it works. But it's ridiculous. It's best what America, again, what Trump's done. USAID, it's called. He's closed it down. Now, I'm not sure I'd necessarily want someone to go that far, but charity, as I said earlier, begins at home. Then I saw that thing about comic relief. The bloke who's basically got his hand up the arse of Pudsey, have you seen how much money he's on? And there we are, giving our cash. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark or Britain. Oh, talking of Denmark, I'm glad I brought that up, my little Hamlet thing. The Danes have basically only had 800 new immigrants in last year. They've come down really hard on it. I went to Denmark a few years ago to a radio conference. I was the guest speaker. It was when I was a somebody, right? I couldn't believe the state of immigration in that country. And it led to terrible murders. You've probably read about it. You've probably seen it on the telly. And they were ahead of us. And what they've done now is clamp down on it. 800 people a day. I'm not saying that every person who comes in is a villain, is a crook, is a murderer. But you've got to know who's coming in. I went down to, I'm in Oxford, as you can see at the moment, and my daughters came, and I went down the M40, and we're going on the bypass there from Coventry. And I said to Lisa, that's the hotel, that hotel there, that's the one that's now a migrant centre. She said, oh, I didn't realise you meant that one. I thought you meant the one in town. I said, no, that one. And it's like on its own. It's on a place called Longbridge Island, not Longbridge in Birmingham, but Longbridge in Warwick, on the outskirts of Warwick, right? It would take you 20 minutes to walk into Warwick town centre. There's nothing there to walk into. But she said, well, what do they do all day? I said, foment terrorism. And she slapped me. She was driving. She said, don't be stupid. I said, well, okay, not foment terrorism. But what a ridiculous thing to put them there. And this is a really quite a nice hotel. Must be 4-star. But it's no good for those people either, is it? And what's wrong with putting them in tents and in camps like the French do? As I say, when we've got our own troops living basically in absolute poverty, or ex-servicemen, and I'm going to keep using the image of screaming, you've seen them in the city centres with no help. You've got to put your people first. And that's not happening. So if you want to learn how to be popular, you've got to be populist, Sir Keir Starmer. Follow people like Trump. Follow people like Farage. But you see, there's this guy called Max Sweeney. You're probably hearing about him. He's a young bloke. He's only just started shaving. Ginger, so I would never trust him anyway. Oh, that's a joke. Oh, God, you're not allowed to make jokes about gingers now. But anyway, he's the bloke who's behind all this. They're coming out with these stupid ideas rather than saying, let's have a plan. Let's have a vision. We've had the 20-year plan for building, what was it last week? Airports. The new runway for Heathrow. It won't ever happen. It won't ever happen. Can we just get some jobs, British jobs for British workers? There's a start. How about that? And then at schools, how about getting some discipline back in there? We've seen good practice. Why don't we just get on and do it rather than all this poncing about? That's what people are revolting against. And this is why Farage will do very, very well at the next election. And if the council elections hadn't been cancelled, you couldn't make it up, could you? He would have wiped the floor in many areas of this country. I have never known the people of our nation to be so angry. Net zero, it's a lovely idea, but it has to be pragmatic. You can't go all electric, having Gary Newman singing for you. You've got to have the infrastructure in place. You don't close down steel mills and you don't close down coal plants if you haven't got an alternative. But you do, of course, if you're Ed Miliband. Bernie Winters, that dog Snorbits had more brains than him. How have we let somebody who can't even eat a bacon sandwich be in charge of our energy policy? And now he's being given a rollicking, so he's had to pretend he's all in favour of Heathrow when it's clearly not. They're a bunch of liars and charlatans and chancers. And the most depressing thing is the other party is just the same. That is just the same. So in the end, that's the other thing he's done. He's cut the civil service madly, crazily, giving them all redundancy. Trump has. That's what we need to do. Most of them don't want to work anyway. They want to stay at home, work from home. Get to work, you lazy bastard. No. Have you seen what Dominic Cummings has been saying about the state of our political class? And it is because they're all the same. They're all common purpose disciples. I despair. I really do. So to answer my own question, what Starmer can learn from Trump and Farage's playbook? He could learn loads if he wasn't such an arrogant you-know-what. And if he changed direction. But he isn't going to do it. We're stuck with him. Or are we? I don't know. Because I don't know how much longer people will put up with this. Oh, there. I've just got some more comments come through. Here's one. We don't have borders anymore. People just rock up when they want. It's unbelievable. You're right. It's like going to a nightclub and the bouncer says, you're not on the list. You go, I don't give a shit. I'm coming in, and just barge your way in. You can't do that. Good afternoon, Gaunty. Please, could you give me a massive hit of nostalgia by saying, there's a wicket in a cricket? Let's get over to Jack Bannister. Yeah, go on then, mate. Do you think that's a nice thing to do, Phil? Because what I'm thinking now, see, Phil, for me, that's when I had money and a job and status and credibility. Here I am in my daughter's kitchen, and you're asking me to relive the highlights of my... I'm only pulling your leg. John, the Labour Party have sold the British public down the river, and now council tax is going to go through the roof for many people. It's just another kick in the teeth. Well, yeah, Steve, but it's not just Labour. The Tories are just as bad. They're just as bad. Mickey B says, hello, fellow patriots. Let's take our country back. Oh, I'm really sorry. There's been something wrong with my computer because all of your points are coming up. I'm gonna put a few of them out for you. So wait a minute. What's that? Starmer's intent on hammering in the final nails in the coffin of our once great nation. Try not to swear in your comments if you can, Phil. He says it makes his urine boil that we send all this money away. I'm folding my business in April because I can't afford the national insurance hike. I'm tamping. And I know where you're coming from. I've got a friend who runs a pub and he's closed it 2 nights a week. He just can't afford the staff wages. And then they bragged about, the price of a pint's coming down. So I know where you're coming from, my friend. I just wanted to go back there. I was just going to do something else before I realised all the comments were working. Yeah, so it's not just Labour. It's all of them. It's the political class. They hate us. Well, reform needs to seriously pull the party together, get a decent vetting process in place, weed out the extreme right candidates and the morons, and get to a place that can offer a credible alternative. They are our only hope. I'm with you 100%, Mickey. Starmer's the new Frank Spencer, the Norman Wisdom of British politics. He's not that funny. What's this one? I'm 67. Two-tier Keir is the worst ever UK PM. You are correct, my friend. Graham Hatton, AOR Guru. He follows me on, I think you follow me, don't you? I certainly follow you on YouTube. John, there can only be one serious course of action at the ballot box for any UK resident, and that's voting for reform. We've had decades of failure from both the Tories and Labour. Yes, but they've got to get themselves sorted. Phil's laughing about me saying, hang on, there's a wicket in the cricket. Jack Bannister, he's passed away. What a lovely man. I met one of his friends a few months ago. I went to a charity do. I can't remember. It was a cricket do. But anyway, nice one. Cheers, Gaunchy. I used to have money too. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. They say money doesn't make you happy. It certainly makes you a lot bloody happier than when you haven't got any. Reeves, the cabbage has flattened the economy. Thousands are now losing their jobs, says Malchus X13. No, 13. Thank you very much indeed for that comment. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'll get the computer fixed because all of you are answering and commenting, and I didn't see them. They didn't come up. So I do apologize for that. If you've enjoyed the show, and you want to help me, what you could really do now is retweet this video and on Facebook, like it, share it, do all those things. Obviously, follow me on YouTube. I've had thousands of people beginning to subscribe to me. That's brilliant if you can do that as well. Please do that. My YouTube channel is John Gaunt TV. It's where all the live shows are. Everything's there. That's where we'll have the guests as well once we get into a straight run. I've had to come down again because the dog's still poorly. That's why I'm not in my studio at home. Gaunty, pay your internet bill. You cheeky sod, Steve. It's not the bill of the internet, you prat. It's the computer. Do you want to buy me a new Mac? Yeah, I didn't think so. And if you want to help financially, you could contribute. Go to buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt and contribute anything from £5 upwards. Guaranteed that the Daily Mail will poll 500 constituencies before the next general election to avoid splitting the right vote. You're probably right, my friend. Probably right, friend. Laugh out loud, Steve says Mickey B. Well, you've all warmed up. My computer's warmed up, but I'm finished now. But if you'd like to contribute, and I really could do with it, honestly, £5 it is to buy me a coffee. Many people buy me 3. Some people, I've got to say, thank you to Chris Ashmore, bought me 10 coffees, 50 quid he threw into the pot last weekend. So thank you for that as well. I'm going to try and do a show every day, or certainly Monday to Thursdays. So thanks for that as well. I hope you find them interested. Join me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook. Maybe we could just keep on moaning and we'll change things gradually. But in terms of what can Starmer learn from Trump and Farage's playbook, he could learn loads, but he's too bloody arrogant. Thanks for joining me. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug, and don't forget to tell them you love them. Oh, hang on a minute. There's a wicket in the cricket. Here's Jack Bannister. See ya. Oh, dear.